banks, and that's their problem now. Zaire has more than 5 billion debt. Zaire cannot repay it because of the situation inside the country.
Mobutu has also run into the ground many once prosperous businesses that had been owned by foreigners, but which he nationalized and then turned over to family and friends. His Uncle Lito, for instance, was given his food importing firm. Today it no longer operates. Inside it looks like a junkyard.
But Uncle Lito did not go broke. Among his many assets, this handsome villa on the outskirts of Brussels.
U.S. Congressman Howard Volpe is chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa.
The economy is falling apart. There have been so many investments that have not made a contribution, that have diverted resources away from activities that would have really helped to develop the agricultural sector, to sustain the economy, feed the population.
Example, just a short distance from Zaire's $100 million television complex is Maniemo Hospital. Once one of the best hospitals in Black Africa, today its equipment is broken down, flies swarm over garbage in the courtyard. The hospital is simply unable to provide many of the most basic services. The rate of child mortality here and throughout Zaire is staggering.
You should see the people. They are really starving slowly to death. Once it was so rich that they, in agriculture, they exported grain. Today they are waiting for the help from the United States so that people can survive.
Everything that is said, that is written in the press, is done to destabilize us, to run us down. You know the history of Zaire since its beginning. We became independent under impossible conditions. There were not even 5 university graduates when the country became independent, and for 5.5, almost 6 years, there was chaos and anarchy. And today, the same people who did not prepare Zaire for its independence are now the first to criticize, to say anything at all.
He has built this country into a country. There wasn't any such thing in the minds of any Zairean or Congolese.
Sheldon Vance was U.S. ambassador to Zaire from 1969 to 1974.
He had to deal with a situation where his people still had no sense of a nation. The traditions of leadership were the traditions of tribal leadership. His goal has been, and I think to a considerable extent he has succeeded, to become the tribal chief of the whole country.
It all belongs to him effectively.
It all belongs to him effectively. And the difference between the privy and the public purse is a difference that is very difficult for them to seize and understand.
So it's not corruption as we know it. It's the way the game is played.
It's the way the game is played, exactly.
Zaire belongs to him.
There you are. Because Zaire doesn't belong to him. Zaire belongs to all the 30 million Zairians.
You're painting a picture of a rather benign patron, tribal chief.
Who's a tough guy, too.
Tough in what sense?
He's tough in insisting on recognition of his leadership role. There can only be one leader, says he, in a tribe or a country.
And if you decide that you're going to be opposition, loyal or otherwise,
you run into trouble.
Case in point, last year, 12 Zairean legislators, opponents of Mobutu, went to the Intercontinental Hotel in Kinshasa to meet with some visiting U.S. congressmen, including Mickey Leland of Texas.
They wanted to form an opposition party, which constitutionally, by the way, is illegal in Zaire.
Afterwards, Congressman Leland happened to be watching from the hotel entrance as the opposition deputies left. The deputies were set upon by plainclothes police.
One guy had been thrown to the ground, as I said, by his tie. And several people were just kicking him and stomping him while he was bleeding profusely from his forehead. And I just saw blood going everywhere. Had I interfered, I probably would have been killed.
What about the attitude, what about the actions of the U.S. Embassy in Zaire?
They tried to gloss over what we had seen there. And their representation to us was that this happens all the time, so don't be so concerned, that this is nothing compared to what used to happen, that kind of thing.
Why is he important to the United States? Why do we pay this kind of attention? Why is he our ally?
He's been a reasonably successful leader of one of the most important countries in black Africa.
And anti-communism.
And anti-communist.
And if he's a Somoza or if he's a Shah?
They're better than Khomeini's.
What would happen if IMF, World Bank, U.S. banks suddenly said, enough. Enough Zaire. Enough Mobutu. We're through.
People would finally, they would die in that country. It would be a revolution. It would be a bath in blood. They cannot stop now.
At some point, President Mobutu will not be there. The question we need to ask ourselves in terms of our long-term interest in Zaire, and Zaire is an important country, is how will the rest of the population respond to the United States subsequently? Are we going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy in which we will effectively be creating a hostile regime, hostile to American interest in the long term? I don't want to see that happen. I don't think Americans want to see that happen.
The people are starving now. The misery of the people will be the best argument, not only against Mobutu, but also against Mobutu's ally, because the perception of the people is that the Mobutu's ally are accomplices for their misery and their starvation. And what will happen? The wild revolution or wild revolt will be something against Mobutu, but also against the West.
He's been there a long time.
That's right. That was the case of Amin, more than 10 years. That was the case of Bokassa, more than 10 years. They all finished the same way. Exile, prison, or death.
Listen, it's not power for power's sake, but the love that I have for my people, this attachment. As we have the habit of saying in Zaire, it is a complicity that exists between the people and the chief. It is not power for power's sake, but I like to rule. Why try to hide it? I like to rule.